Okay.
Hey everybody. Hello, good morning. I think it's still the morning, yeah. This is a presentation mostly on how to sell, how to kind of learn about your company and better kind of target your messaging, your product, your service, whatever have you, to kind of better attach in the hearts and minds of those you're looking for. Before I begin, I would love to kind of go around the room and Mevi, I appreciate you turning on your video. I love to see smiling faces here. If anyone, I would love to hear who we got in the room, what you're working on, what your ventures are, that kind of stuff. I'll turn over to you guys. Don't be shy now. Come on. This is a friendly place. Look, my dog's already asleep. This is going to be fine. Come on.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing great. My name is Joanne. I am the CEO and owner of founder of Kenyan Cutie LLC. My jewelry is, my business is a jewelry-based business. It is, I am originally from Kenya. I went there. I was struck by the beauty and the poverty. So I try to do something that will kind of incorporate the two. So I purchase jewelry from from entrepreneurs. I support them, which helps them grow their business. I bring the jewelry here, and for every $10 I sell, I take 1% of that. 10% of that net sale and donate to Village Food Bank, which helps feed people in Kenya. So my slogan is purchase with purpose, because it's not just beautiful jewelry, it is also making a difference.
Very good.
I can go second. So hi, my name is Amivi, and my business is also African related. So my business is called Afri Variety, and it's basically about African home decor. So so we provide paintings, sculptures, musical instruments, and anything just to like aesthetically pleasant for the home, just to to promote African culture and to help, maybe I'll say, people, African who came here maybe a long time ago, who still want
My name is Clarissa Kozar. I'm the owner of Tailored Fit. It is a tall, slim clothing line for boys who fall in like the 85 percentile and above for height. And we mass produce the most common sizes for tall boys.
Very cool. All right, Ariel, you want to bring us home? Okay, a little shy, no worries. Thank you guys so much for giving up part of your day here. I like to do these a little bit more, than just me barking at you. I want this to be interactive. Stop me if you have questions. Ask as many questions as possible. I really want to make sure that you guys get as much as you can out of this. Sorry if my lisp is a little distracting. I started Invisalign the other day and have noticed that it's made me sound a bit silly. So apologies. This is going to be a wonderful recording for the University of Baltimore. Anyway, let's get into it. Oh, we got one more person coming in here too. Okay, great. We're going to get going here. So there's two questions I want you guys to keep in mind here as we go through the presentation. All right. The first one, does anyone care? Okay. Does anyone care about what you're doing? Who does, if they do? And really, what does apathy look like for your guys' industry? And then the second one, are we communicating in a way that only we can? Okay, messaging is a very strong indicator of how well you know your audience, how well your product might solve any issues that they're facing, or just, again, like, how are you going to hook somebody? So those are the two questions I want you to keep in mind throughout the entire presentation. Does anyone care? And are we communicating in a way that only we can? But before we get into all that, I like to kind of remind people what we're going to talk about today. Market validation. We're going to be discussing that, how to do one, basically how to go through the steps to see how big a potential market is that you're facing down here as a company. Ideal customer profile. This really gets to the heart of who necessarily is your target demographic customer, in a way that you best understand them, so that you're able to sell to them consistently, and as well, know who they are and know where they spend time. Developing an MVP. Hopefully you guys have heard what MVP knows, and it's not Most Valuable Primate, which was a made-for-TV Disney movie back in the 90s about a little ape that plays hockey. No, it's not that. It's minimum viable product. We'll talk through that. Wrap up with some stuff to do, stuff to don't, things that I've learned from my own experience in sales. And then if we're lucky, if we have time left over, a baby goat will be going to everyone's office and home office, and you'll get to play with a baby goat for the rest of the day. That's my gift to you guys. All right, here we go. First off, who am I? Why should you care? I'm the smiling idiot on the right. I have about 14 years of sales experience. I'm originally from Detroit, but I've been in Maryland here since the summer of 2009. I'm the co-founder, sorta. Essentially, I missed co-founding Kapowza by 3 months, but for all intents and purposes, I'm a co-founder. Dan, my co-founder, the one with the nice red X over his face, technically he's the founder, but we don't want that to go to his head. I've sold before. I've done sales now for the agency side, obviously here for 7 years. Before that, I did sales for regional window repair and installation company. I've sold at events, conferences. I've done a lot. I know what it means to work with an audience, hook somebody, and get them to trust you enough to pay you money, which is hopefully what your guys' goals are here. I'm a nerd. If you're not distracted by my beautiful sleeping dog here in the background, you're probably distracted by all these random various statues and comic books. And anyway, I like comic and video games. I'm a nerd. And I built Kapowza, which is the company I work for. We built that in the ETC, which is the Emerging Technology Center. It's an incubator over in Highlandtown. We built that in 2015, and we actually opened our LA office earlier this year. And some of you got our newsletter. Well, actually, I think just Natalie. We just launched our second company this year called Blurst. So that's me. I've done this before. I've been in your position before. I've gone through these kind of topics before. So I feel like we can have a good conversation here. Again, any questions, shout it out, unmute yourself. But without further ado, we'll get right into it and talk about market validation. So market validation, this fancy term as defined by Harvard Business School, which is obviously a hoity-toity organization, much smarter than me, but it's the process of determining if there's a need for your product in the target market, right? Now, I think a lot of people get started with the idea of, well, I'm good at this, and people that I know, kind of buy this kind of stuff, maybe I'll just go out and do that. And that's fine. That's a good way to test theories. That's not exactly market validation, though. Essentially, I distill this down into a very simple concept of, if I make this bread, will people need it down in Bread Town? Maybe not, because maybe they already have bread. I mean, it's named Bread Town. You never know. But that's in essence the idea behind market validation. Okay, there's a product market fit for your service, your product within a given audience, within a given market. Do you understand that? How do you define it? All that kind of stuff. Well, that's wonderful, Sean. Thank you for so eloquently explaining the Harvard Business School's market validation. That doesn't mean anything to me. How does it work? Well, I'll tell you how it works. There's a couple steps we're going to go through. So the first thing you guys need to do in developing a market validation plan is to figure out what you're trying to do. Okay, what's the value of my product? You know, everything that you guys are doing is specific and unique, right? So really, ideally, what value will this bring to a company that I'm trying to sell to, the individual? What is the value of my product? Who's the audience? Who's buying it? Who ideally is the customer at the end of the day that I want to reach that would give a shit about my product? And sorry if I swear a little bit. You know, I grew up in a dysfunctional household. What's different about my widget and widget service? You know, I think it's very easy, especially if you're getting going, to get caught up in, you know, taking a look at the grass on your neighbor's lawn, right? I mixed up two metaphors there, but I think you know what I mean. You know, you're going to have competition within every market, within every venture that you go into. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of free market capitalism. What you really need to focus on is what is different and unique about your point of view, your products, your services, and how are you a better fit for your audience than that initial seller, that competitor. And the other thing, really important, can I make a living here? You know, I think everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit, at the end of the day, yeah, it's great to feel like you're making the world a better place. You have a really, outstanding mission when it comes to just improving quality of life for people, or you know, a population of people. At the end of the day, you have to be able to pay yourself. You have to be able to make an income that you feel safe, secure, and provide for your family. So those are the four things that you should really try and distill down. And I always am a big believer in taking notes. So yeah, Joanne, sorry, do you want to say something?
Yes, I have a question. What is your, do you have a pricing strategy or any type of advice you can give as far as how to price that? You know, again, definitely you want to make an income, and you want to make an income in a way that makes sense and it still allows you to scale up. So what kind of, you know, advice would you have as far as pricing?
Well, a lot of pricing scales come with genuinely understanding and recognizing what your audience can withstand, right? So you might try a lower price point initially and test it out and raise it ever so often. And once you see that pronounced drop off, you get, okay, that's what the market can withstand. Okay. It's really about trying and testing things, and kind of for you, you're going to know at the end of the day, if I'm buying this product and changing it or whatever and reselling it for this, not only do you want to make a profit on the item itself, but then your time is valuable. And that's the hardest part to kind of understand as an entrepreneur, is getting your time to be as valuable as possible. And you're going to pour so much of yourself in there. You're going to love yourself for making that first sale. But if you're just barely covering the costs of doing your thing, then that's not worth it, right? You've obviously underpriced or undervalued your product. So again, to answer your question, I think it's really about what your audience will accept and kind of going from there. And perhaps it's even a thing where you're testing out different models against different audiences just to kind of see what's the sweet spot.
That's a
great question. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna go move on here unless anyone's got the next one. Okay. Slide 2 here. Second step. How big is that market? All right. The easiest way to do this is, again, take a look at your neighbor. Take a look at your competitor. Take a look at someone that already exists in the market and do as much research as you can, right? So you want to see, what have similarly sized companies done in the last couple of years before you were even in the market. You want to understand what types of terms and what types of language they're using to attract your potential buyers, right? What are people that will eventually become your ideal customer persona or population? What are they already accustomed to seeing when it comes to the language that's being talked about? And there are a plethora of tools out there right now. It's never been more easier. Yeah, that makes sense. To do the research online as to say, wow, like I can see based on the growth of this competitor, there's a need in my market if I did X or Y, right? So really understanding how big that market is, you'll be able to get information around the number of competitors, how crowded the market space is, what gaps exist in the market. And again, you're getting data as to how big and how much money is actually being spent by the entire audience within that. But one of the most important things in determining how big that market is, aside from just how much money and how much market cap, I guess I would say, that the competitors are making, but what spaces aren't they playing in that still are related to your audience? So think about that.
So can I interrupt for a sec?
Please.
So this is one of the problems I'm struggling with, because my product kind of crosses into the children's apparel market and the big and tall industry, because I'm specifically targeting tall boys.
Yeah.
And it's actually not a lot of research on that specific thing. So what do I do for that?
So you actually have a 3-market issue, right? So you can take the big and tall audience market, you can take the child's apparel market and almost overlap them, okay? And say, if the big and tall market eventually, which is where children in that, if they continue whatever to grow at the rate that they're growing, they might end up being specific customers for that industry. And then you have the general children apparel market, and you could say children of a certain age, right? That audience, that industry is responsible for X billion dollars. There's an overlap between those two that you can create, because you're potentially talking to both of those audiences, right? So I would consider that. I would consider creating almost, because your market is pretty niched. I love that idea. I can't think of another big and tall for kids in the market right now. Take a look at what the established player is doing, the big and tall versus the children's apparel, and then combine those two audiences and say, this is where we live. Does that make sense? So because you're essentially playing with both of those audiences and both of those markets. So it's going to be a larger audience at first, because again, it's very niche and very specific, but you have at least those different two pieces to bring it together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Step 3. This is one of my favorite pieces, especially early on. The best you can understand your successes, your past experiences, your past sales, the more likely you are to experience success in the future if you replicate what made you successful in the past. And the only really way to do that is to understand your existing customers, right? So do as much research as you can, be open to feedback, really try and figure out the people and talk to as much as you can, the people that have already opted in to receiving your messaging, have purchased your products, have consistently supported you, bought your services, whatever have you. Figure out why. Ask them. I mean, when you're this early and you have such a small audience, it's amazing to me that it's become so much of an untapped potential, because people, just think, oh, well, they found me online and they wanted to get something fun for their aunt. Well, but why? How did they find you online? Or how did they know that what you were going to do for them was going to be successful, and so they've come back to you X amount of times? As a consumer, I love it when a newer brand reaches out to me to see, hey, what ultimately made you sell, or what ultimately made you purchase, I should say. I love that they're taking the time to feel like it's more of a relationship between that consumer and less of a transaction. And we'll go into this in a little later, but I'm a really big believer in emotionally connecting and connecting on a one-to-one basis, right? People nowadays, there's a lot of an effort on not only supporting minority founders, but really kind of not spending their money to line the pockets of capitalists and larger corporations, right? There's so much of a focus on local, handmade, craft, whatever have you. Those people really want to know who you are, the people behind the business. At the end, and I'm sure this might be true for you guys too, at the end of the day, people like doing business with people. They don't want to just do business with a brick and mortar or a logo or a company name. Companies are hearts and minds behind those things. And the more that they have a sense of who that person is, the more that they're going to understand and relate to you as a person. So take the time, try and reach out to your customers, try and reach out to the people that are fans of yours and figure out why. What did you like about me? What's the barrier? What would we have to do as a company to get you to tell people about what we're doing? Tell your friends, that kind of stuff. The more that you can do that kind of research, the better you're going to be set up for future sales and future success down the line. Test it again. I cannot cannot explain this in better ways, really. You guys are at such a critical spot in your birth of a company, because you have a smaller audience that is opted in, that cares about what you're doing, and you have at this point the opportunity to try a lot of stuff. Okay, test out a lot of marketing messages, test out a lot of price points. Doing this research at this small point is you're minimizing future risk. Okay, so if you spend the time to really understand what your audience is willing to accept, what messaging really relates with them, that's going to really help when you start growing that audience and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. As a company, for where we're at, specifically, it's really about, I've got on my newsletters here like 3,000 people that opt in to hear what we say, right? Imagine if we had done some of the stuff that I had done nowadays when we were only 10 or 15 people, right? It's a lot less of a chance if I made a mistake or sent out a newsletter with a wrong URL with that small audience versus doing it now larger, more attention, more eyeballs, right? So while you're this young, while you're this early in your companies, this is when you should be trying as much as you can of different things, because it's going to tell you, number one, again, what's most effective. Number two, like, what should I avoid doing in the future? And number three, if you do make a mistake, the losses are really low, because again, it's a smaller base that you could upset at any given time. Not to say that you should try that and, don't at the end of the day do that. But what I'm saying is now is the time for you to be flexible, try some things, all that kind of stuff. There you go. All right. Any questions before we go into ideal customer personas? Okay. Everything making sense so far in market validation? Everybody got an idea of what they need to do to kind of figure that out? Wonderful. All right. Ideal customer persona profiles. Oh, thank you. I see the chat here too. And if you get this picture, congratulations. You know what a juggalo is. I'm sorry for you. Ideal customer profiles are the perfect customer for what my company, product, service solves for. These are the traits that you're kind of going to need to know to set these up. How large is this group? What type of budgets do they have? What do they make in revenue? If they're a company, how large are they? How small are they? Industry, right? So if you see consistency around, people that are teachers buy our products, or people that are work in the construction industry, just naming different things. As specific as possible, learning that, that's really going to help you, again, targeting that marketing after you go that. Geography. This is really important. As a small company, you don't want to go after everybody all at once, right? As you're early enough, you should really only put yourself out there to an audience in a geography that you feel comfortable enough talking to. So for us, when we first started getting going, I was on the road a lot, but I was traveling all around Maryland. When we got that first company outside the state, I was like, oh, I'm a little nervous, right? I can't do that in-person thing. It's not like I'm going to fly out every week for our weekly meeting. That's going to bankrupt us. But, it's really focusing in on that market initially, because you know that market, number one, and number two, you have a connection to it in some way. And then, again, is what I'm doing legal? the worst thing you could do is start a company doing something that the government wouldn't like you doing, and you might get slapped on the wrist, sent to jail, and we don't want that to happen. And I've distilled all this down to the idea of we keep selling things to guys named Jim. Think there's anything to that? Somebody that works at a company called Jimco Jeans. But essentially, ideal customer profile is all about how best do you understand the person on an individual basis. Okay. So distilling down, we started with market validation. How big is the potential audience that I'm talking to? Now it's taking a slice of that and saying, who is the individual that best represents that larger market? Does that make sense, everybody? I'm seeing nods, I'm seeing thumbs up. Wonderful. Someone tell me, what does Nike do so well? Shout it out, say it in chat, whatever you want. What does Nike do so well?
I think they're
Nike Ed. Oh, are you saying Ed too, Joanne?
I was saying their advertisements and their marketing, like their advertisement sticks in your head. You know,
Okay.
I could be about to cook and I'm like, I'm just going to do it. You know, it just kind of
do it. All right.
Exactly. It just sticks with you. And then it's also like sometimes, you know, they're conscious about a lot of things, and they voice it in a way that's not, it's like, this is my stand and I am very comfortable with this stand. And I just want to break down why I'm so comfortable here, you know? So very detailed in communication.
Okay. Clarissa, anything to add to that?
No, we were basically on the same page. Their advertising and marketing, I mean, it really sticks with you. Their most recent one during the pandemic was due to diversity and things like that. They, as Ariel put in the chat, their inclusion and things like that, they do it really well.
Ariel, very good point. Yes, inclusion. And that is exactly what I was hitting at.
I just wanted to add.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, just like Clarissa and Joanne said, I think they make you feel empowered. So yeah, that's all.
So Nike has this element of brand consistency that makes it feel like no matter what you do, anyone could be an athlete, right? It's that inclusion, that idea of empowerment that you said, Joanne. It's really more about making that lifestyle of athletics or doing something in sport. Really, it was about kind of like blurring the lines of what a sport was or what working out could be. That is what Nike has done masterfully. They made, and I want to bring your attention to this top ad right here, this top screenshot. This young boy running down, I'm going to say it's Iowa. I've never been to Iowa. Let's just say it's Iowa. This ad premiered at the Super Bowl a number of years ago. All you saw was the horizon, and you heard the breath of, you believed to be someone coming up over the hill. And it turned out to be this young boy. And it was him just running alone. I'm assuming this looks like early in the morning. It could be early in the evening. But really, it was that idea of sport isn't just the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woods, the LeBron James of it all. It's anybody. Anybody can be an athlete. Anybody can involve and be involved with our brand who's trying to do something. And that was powerful. That was a powerful message to kind of say, everyone can do this. We're selling this aspirational, inspirational kind of message. And they've been so consistent with it because of the swoosh, because of just do it, that they have, I mean, they're Nike. I don't have to tell you who Nike is. When I say Nike, everyone's got an opinion of what that means. You might be wearing Nike right now. I am not, but just an idea there. So story time. So a number of years ago, a local real estate company came to us and they said, we think it's time to upgrade our commercials. We've been doing the same thing for a while. It's been, a realtor kind of standing in front of a house or walking through a house, waving at things and talking to a young couple or whatever. And there's no connection there between our audience. There's no real target as to just kind of remind people that we exist. And we said, okay, all right, well, you know, who do you want to do business with? Who do you want to represent as a real estate agency? You know, and they said, you know, we really want young homeowners. We want this this group that, you know, are just probably settling into a career, have some savings, maybe are looking at renting, but know that that's not how you build equity or your credit score or whatever. And you know, they're just at that stage in life where they need a house. They want to start kind of putting down roots and build a family. And that family word kind of stuck in our head a little bit. And we said, okay, all right, that's good. Went back, came back with them just a number of scripts. And I'll talk about the spot in a little bit, but what we kept coming back to was, and there's a lot of studies out there about the tactic of using truth in advertising. Okay. And we said, the thing that has stuck with us consistently about learning about this audience, young home buyers, first-time home buyers, is that, you know, they don't want just a house, they want a home, right? And so through that, we developed the tagline of Northrop Realty, which is the name of the company. We sell houses, you make them homes. And it became very aspirational, very inspirational to that notion of this real estate agent. They're really all they're really to do is trying to sell houses, trying to get people in houses and living. And it's more about the couple, it's more about the individual buying the house that really turns that house into a home. And we match that marketing message with a commercial about this young couple that are going through these different phases of the relationship by passing along this little blue box. And the blue box at first is, you know, the guy gets, they go on a hike, this guy gets down on his knee and there's a ring in the box. He gives it to her and they're very happy. The next thing that happens is the, sorry, my doorbell just rang. The wife comes home from work, sees a blue box on the, you know, where she puts her keys, and opens it up, and it's a front door key. It's the key to a house. They got the house of their dreams. It's wonderful. Young couple standing in front of the house, very excited. Moving boxes are all outside, and you know, getting put into the house. And the woman kind of just hands the blue box to the guy and starts walking away. And he's like, "Well, this was what I did. What are you stealing my shtick for?" Opens the box and there's a pacifier in it, right? And he's very excited. He's overcome with emotion. They run up to the house and, you know, he lifts her up, spins her around. They go in the house. Yeah. That spot got so much attention for Northrop Realty. I had dozens upon dozens of emails from their realty, of voicemails of people saying, "Oh my God, that reminded me of the story with my wife or my girlfriend and I are buying a house and we want to work with you. And we just love that commercial." And really it was about making it relatable and better. We really understood who the audience was that Northrop was going after. So it's young couples, right? And so what was effective for them? Well, it was something cute between this man and this woman in this commercial. Now, we didn't really use a real couple, obviously. We had to cast for actors. But we made it relatable. We made it aspirational in a way that people were able to say, oh, you know, it's stuck in that notion of you sell houses. That's very honest. I appreciate you telling me this. But we make them home. It's on us to do that. And it's really about that interplay between what the company's trying to do and what the benefit is to the end user. That was really important. So any questions on ideal customer persona? Joanne, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I'm just kind of brainstorming. Do you think does it help you if you consider yourself your target market? Like a product or service that you are offering is something that you would be down for? Like, does that kind of make you too close-minded to opening your mind up to, you know, or does it help in narrowing down?
No, you hit on it, right? Because it can be helpful, but it can also be very unhelpful and distracting. Okay, there's a notion here that I put in. Oh, hold on, skipping ahead. Okay, of confirmation bias. So that is essentially you are relating too much and too closely to a message or a tactic that you're considering that you're almost blind to the negative effects of it. Okay. You want people to be truthful to you. And while it may help you define initially that market that you should go after, it's you realize that you cannot you cannot fully support your company, if that makes sense, right? You alone, as the person, the sole person behind it, cannot do that. It will help you in terms of defining the entire market, but it should not be your entire persona, should not be just you, because that's going to lead you to confirmation bias, and you're really not going to truly listen to any, differing opinions. So I would say it can help to a point. Does that help? Okay.
Thank you. It does.
No problem.
And that's I was going there with you. I'm like, okay, yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking, because when you are a little overly focused on, well, I know who wants this, I know blah, 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 we'll take you to the other side. But I think it can at least help you find where to look. Yes.
And I would say this too, depending on how broad that base is of initial customers, initial fans, it does help to look at outliers of data sometimes, but also don't try and go after the smallest group if you're never going to get them, right? You really need to find who relates most to that central message that you're consistently saying in a way that also doesn't alienate the outliers, because they potentially could, since they've already been introduced to your company or your product and service. So, all right, anybody else? Okay, last but not least here, minimum viable product, the MVP. All right, so MVP is used effectively if you're trying to proof case your business, your service. What is the most simplified version of my product offering that will get me at least out the door in a way that I can start making sales, that I can start getting traction of a brand without going whole hog invested in the end goal product and service. And there's a lot of benefits to doing MVP early for startups, because number one, it allows you to get to market quicker, right? So instead of worrying about all the bells and whistles about what you really want and what the final fully thing to look like, think about, almost like taking off pieces and saying, at what point does it stop becoming something I can sell? And at what point does it start becoming something I could sell if you start to add things, right? So launching quickly, getting out there, testing things again, as we mentioned earlier, that's one of the key benefits to an MVP. And again, also you're saving capital, right? Because you're not having a fully invested thing yet. You're not perhaps blowing it out with features and services and all that yet. It's really just allowing you to get something to market as a proof case to say, this is going to work or this isn't going to work. And once you determine that, okay, let's add something else to it. Is that more accepted? Is it not more accepted? Take it off. Let's keep trying things. That allows you really to test, collect feedback, and allow you to iterate. Okay. So being able to say, this is a MVP of my product and service, and that could just be, where's Ariel at? Ariel right there, I missed you. If we're talking about what you're doing initially, that could just be one product line first, right? If I'm only going to say, is this proof, what other things would customers want? Well, you could test as different MVPs, evolving those offerings as you go. You don't have to have a full suite of services, a full suite of products initially to test and really understand, is this going to work for an audience? Okay. So those are really the three kind of main things you should keep in your mind when developing an MVP. Ariel's asked a good question here. Ariel, we'll hit that in a second. Okay. And then I distilled all that down into, do personal pizzas qualify as pizzas? It's a good question, right? I don't know. It's kind of an MVP of a full pizza, right? I don't know if I'm going to like that topping on my full pizza. Get a little size. I don't know if I like their sauce. Let's get a personal pan pizza first and see if it works. So I don't really have a story for this, but I really want to understand for you guys what you think your MVP currently is. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves. Clarissa, I want you to go first because you seem eager. So I want you to tell me where you're at and what your MVP is today.
Okay, so I'm actually, I guess, in the very beginning stages, and this actually really helped me out because what I want to do is start with a pair of pants. By the time my company is in full, whatever, I want it to be a go-to place for everything tall,
Yeah.
slim boys. So
Yep.
outerwear, underwear, sleepwear, costumes, all that. So I want to start with like 3 pairs of pants, joggers, khakis, and a pair of denim pants.
Love
Because
it.
I think that's the most important object that because my son is a tall, slim guy. That's where the idea came from. So that I think that's one of the main things that we really struggle with.
Mhm.
So, and then
Pants.
we'll go to shirts, long sleeve shirts and things like that, and then we'll keep moving. But I
Yeah.
like what you said about testing each step. So once we introduce the first level of pants, when we move to the next thing, then we can introduce different shirts and things like that.
I think that's very easy. Yeah, I think you have an idea of pants because number one, that is a barrier to entry for a lot of people within that space, right? You can't find good pants. You can put on a baggier shirt, you can put on a smaller shirt, you got a jacket over it, whatever. But pants is a very limiting factor. Not a lot of people walking around outside without pants, and they shouldn't be. So that's great. I think that's a really good, smart way to move. And again, too, you're going to get that feedback to say, okay, the khakis isn't really working, right? Well, those are maybe that's the one that's not flying off the shelves like the joggers or the other ones. That's also another way for you to say, okay, what would be the shirt equivalent to the khakis that, maybe I don't need to prioritize as much as something that would go with the jogger to make that more of a set. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Joanne.
Okay, I would say I am I'm about 3, almost 4 years in now into Kenyan Cutie, but the pandemic did kind of set me back, so I had to regroup and So in late 2021, I now have a website. I think when I was selling like pop-up shops and in person, I was doing very well with earrings and necklaces. So I think my most viable would have been, my MVP would have been the earrings, because they're a lot more cost effective. And I mean, they're not as expensive. So it's easier to try it before I jump into anything bigger. Now,
Absolutely.
what I noticed is like my number one, like sell out all the time is the waist beads. But since COVID, I have to measure them for them to fit you. So it's hard to
That's harder.
sell them online if I can't measure them. They're very, very hard to sell, but they're my biggest seller as far as, selling out on them. So what I'm doing is just kind of with the website. First, I put the earrings on there, then I put like soon necklaces, like kind of to get a little hype going around it. I'm trying to be more social media present, just to introduce different things. So yeah, that's kind of my strategy right now, is just kind of focusing on the earring and trying to figure out a way to safely, get in person to be able to sell the waist beads. They're very, especially once it warms up, they're very hot.
I believe it. No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think you're using, again, something that can easily accent or be added to an outfit to create something new, but again, tells the story and is relatable to what your mission is. I think that was very smart. Very good.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, hold on here. Okay. Anyone else MVP before we get to Ariel's messages here? Okay. All right. We'll get back to it then.
Oh, I have a quick input on it. So
hey, Brian.
Hello. So I've actually done this before, and I had essentially a piece of equipment that I was making for laboratory use. And I made a small demo, or a small prototype of it, and I actually took it to trade shows and got people's input without buying booths or anything like this. The issue I ran into is that, especially if you have a product, you now have to get it through, and if it's anything electrical, you have to get it through all the safety certifications, and that got quite expensive very quickly.
Yep.
So I finally did fold that idea. Plus, I was seeing what competitors were coming out with. So I just wanted to bring it up that it depends on what what you're trying to make and what your product is. I mean, I had gotten an estimate if it was going to be $50,000 just to get UL safety certification, which is the electronic certification you get. And if it didn't pass, you're going to have to do it again. So, that kind of was it for me, because I was trying to self-fund it. But
Brian, did you ever consider bringing what you were doing to the competitors or the other people already in the market to say, hey, I've developed this, I've taken it as far as I could, would you want to partner, bring this to market as a product for your business? Have you done that?
Yeah, yes, I did. I actually took it to a trade show, and I actually had it in my hotel room. I drug it down to Washington, D.C. in the hotel room. And I had lots of meetings from contacts in my professional world that were from industries, and got a input in of, what do you think of this? Is this a good idea? Is it not? Is it something worth pursuing or not? Again, ultimately I stopped because it was the financial cost of it was so high. I wasn't willing to do that personally. And it was a good call, actually. Just a couple years later, a lot of these smaller competing systems came out. So it worked out in the end, but it could have been a very expensive proposition.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, again, Brian, I really appreciate that example. I think that really, again, shows not even just MVP, that shows a lot, right? That shows almost the first two steps as well of the presentation. So thank you very much for sharing that. I think it seems like you went through the steps of finding if this was going to work in the market and figuring out, who would best use this and who would best benefit from it. So that was an amazing example. So thank you very much, Brian. All right, going to Ariel's here for a second. She's blowing up chat. Let's see. How important is visual marketing through the stages? I feel as though I have to focus in on it right now during MVP. However, where can I find quality video photos for hire? Is there some out here that is affordable? I would say this. If you are looking for initially to hire, to get somebody to help you for where you're at today, look at students. Honestly, look at other University of Baltimore students, even local other universities. There are students out there willing to learn and put to use the skills that they're developing in classrooms, in practical positions, and can do it affordably. Also consider creating an internship, right? There's also a big, especially in the entrepreneurial field, to have internships as an entrepreneur, okay? And that can be anything, really, from working with you on a one-to-one to tackling some of the needs that you perhaps don't feel as comfortable doing yourself. Is everyone familiar with the terms of opportunity cost? Clarissa knows it. Clarissa, what is it?
Well, you have said familiar, but what I'm learning in my class is that it is, well, in my finance class, they said if you take $1 today and don't invest it, then you lost the opportunity cost. So it's like, if you say, do you want $1 today or tomorrow? If you take the one tomorrow, you miss the opportunity to invest your $1 today.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, succinctly put, but for me, opportunity cost is really about how much your own time is worth, and thinking about, is it cheaper for me to learn to do something that I am not skilled at, or is it cheaper for me to hire someone that already has those skills to do what I can't do, so that I can focus on my business, growing my product and services, and getting the word out about it. Really, it's just that. And I see that issue not thought about a lot in entrepreneurs, really, because there's so much of that stick-to-itiveness, that gumption to just do everything by yourself and bootstrap and all that, yada, yada, yada. And that's fine and dandy, but think about what you're missing out on. Thinking about how much time it's going to take you away from working on the core business, that you could easily have invested that money in an intern, entry-level hire, whatever have you, to do the things you don't want to do or can't do yourself. Joanne, you got something to say?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't have a lot of time to put reels together and do a bunch of social media. So I hired my niece at like,
Perfect.
I think $15 a week, and for every followers or whatever she generates, every 10, then she'll get a bonus.
That's nice. That's huge. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, she does this all day anyway. So this is a way to even kind of hone in on her skills.
Yeah. Exactly. Well,
as she's doing this.
it's a mutually beneficial relationship, as any
Absolutely.
internship should be, right?
Exactly.
Especially entrepreneurial internships and entry level hires. Like a lot of these students that are coming into university programs with entrepreneurial mindsets, it's really about, you know, they just want tangible experience. They just want to know and get out of the classroom and actually devote the lessons and their teaching to benefiting a company, a startup. And who doesn't want to help a local business with a, you know, selfless mission? I mean, that's a great way to start going. So,
Exactly.
Ariel, glad I could help you there. What was your other thing here? With my diamond business filing, I'm currently running my services. Okay, in a few years, when I have my law license, I can go full blown. Fantastic. In my shoe company, in the very idea planning phase, searching for a good vendor relationship, shoe styles, and a marketing person, tool, brand look. That's great. One of the places you also might want to look, Ariel, is within Micah's design program. They have really done an excellent job at developing product design programming, and there are a ton, again, of students hungry for internship experience, just like I'm sure they are at UB. But design, product design, that's a whole mess of a different audience to go after. So good luck to you on that one. Maybe I saw you come put your camera on. Did you have something you wanted to say? Or not? You know, I could put you on the stand. That's fine.
No.
All right. Well, I appreciate you turning your camera on and joining us in the camera crew. That's good. All right. So here's some stuff, just some general kind of do's and don'ts, stuff that I wish someone had told me before I did any of this and went down my own entrepreneurial startup journey. Okay, be human. And I teased this earlier, but you know, think about this. You know, people like doing business with people. You know, it's not just a transaction. You swipe your card and you leave me with your latte. They want to really understand and connect with the people that are behind a company, a logo, a brand, so that they can feel empowered to champion that logo, that company, that brand, right? So at the end of the day, be honest, be a human, and I think that'll really transform your thinking around, you know, your business. Give before you get. You know, I love doing these kind of talks. I love being, you know, servicing startups like as a sounding board and assisting in some way. And you know, what comes back to me is a lot. You know, it's not just the fact that I feel good about myself and I get experience as a speaker, but you know, like these are relationships with people that might, you know, eventually need my services down the line. So really think about this. You know, instead of making an initial sale, if I make a connection with someone and maybe it's not the right time for them to buy or whatever like that, you've planted a seed that is going to stick with them because you were willing to be selfless, vulnerable, and you know, honest with where they are and what they were needing. Consistency. This is really tough, guys, especially as a young company trying as much as you can right now. Consistency becomes an issue when you start trying to do too many things at once, okay? So if you have a Facebook page that's talking about X, but your Instagram is talking about Y, and then you're in person and it looks nothing like anything else, that's going to be an issue for people because really they want to be able to come to expect the same thing no matter how they interact with you. And I'm not saying repeat messaging or post the same thing you do on Facebook, the same thing in Instagram. But if you have a consistent brand and a consistent brand message, consistent colors, design, whatever have you, that needs to be across the board what you stick to. And it's okay to evolve it and test it, especially again, as you're with this, you know, your small audience that you're at. But again, the more you can be consistent, and think about Nike too, right? The more you can be consistent, the more someone is going to think about you in the same way. So no matter how they come across you, they're going to know, oh, this is Kenyon Cutie, and I love them, and this is why, right? This next part kind of goes with the be human thing, but be honest with yourself, your customers. You know, if you are running late on something, or if you are going over budget, or if you need to raise your prices, I've found that it's the easiest thing you can do is just be honest and just say, hey, this is where it is. You know, as a young business, we're learning, we're making mistakes. We hope that you'll understand and appreciate that we're coming to you like this, as a human. People respect that, and people know and that you're dependable and accountable for any issues. So it's really served me well in my business that when something goes wrong, or somebody has an issue with how something's done, they can pick up the phone and tell me, and I can say and empathize with them. Empathize, you know what I mean? Empathy with them, so that they know that I'm going to take care of it and I'm going to figure it out. At the end of the day, that also just builds in trust, and that's essentially what you should be doing with your business now. Have better handwriting. Thank God I didn't have to do any of this by hand, because you guys would get to see my chicken scratch. That's really for me. Think about that. Body language. Body language is super important when it comes to anything in person, right? This also goes back to the being human thing, but people like doing business that with people that remind them about their, the attributes and expectations of who they are as a person themselves, right? So if you are mirroring their energy, if they're relaxed and you're sitting back, you can be approaching them the same way. This is really more for in-person kind of communications, but body language and mirroring body language is, and there's studies on this kind of stuff, but the more that you are able to be an effective body language communicator, the more effective you're going to be at converting people from being interested in you to investing in you to being a customer of you to being a fan of you, right? Because they're going to see something in you that they love and see in themselves. So think about that. Be yourself. I'm a pretty animated guy. I got nerd stuff. So I got a dog that sleeps. I don't have a fake, no offense, Nathalie. I'm sure that's a lovely, I don't think that's your boardroom. I'll call you out on that. But, be yourself. And I think especially during this time that we're all kind of stuck at home and working from home. And, I got so many, in 2020, I was scared shitless. Again, apologies. As to where my business was going, because so much of it was based on relationships and going to events and going to networking events and conferences and whatnot. And I was panicking. I was scared. I didn't know. I mean, all that was gone from me, right? And what I did was channel that anxiety, that fear a little bit into connecting with other people that could be experiencing the same emotions that I was, right? So the first couple of weeks, all I did in this pandemic working was choosing 10 people that I had met in the last couple of years, reaching out to them on a one-to-one basis to say, hey, I really hope you and your family are doing well. If there's anything I can do to help you, this time sucks. I hope that you and yours are safe, happy, and healthy. And I got so much love back from that. I got so many people that reached out after I reached out and said, I really need to hear from you, man. Or it was so nice to hear from you. We should talk. We're trying to figure out, we're trying to pivot, all this kind of stuff. But it just helped because I felt like I was being myself. I was being honest and open about what the struggles that I was going through, in a hope of relating with future customers that they were also going through some of those dread feelings that the pandemic was bringing on. And the more that you do that, the more, again, you're building that authentic sense of self that can reflect the values and mission of your business. Don't chase. This is probably one of the most important lessons I can give you guys. And what I mean by don't chasing is don't go out of your comfort zone to do something or agree to do something that you're not sure how you're going to do without feeling comfortable. We as a company wasted a lot of time going after larger government contracts and playing the game of, I got to have this sealed, notarized, 18-page document in this terry colored envelope. And then there's another one. It just felt so, again, inauthentic. It didn't feel like us. The more rules that we had to play with, the less I enjoyed a project. And it just bit us in the ass at the end of the day. So really, if I can impart anything on the don't chase methodology, really know who you are, know what your company wants to do, and know who is going to talk, who at the end of the day is going to be receptive to your message. And the people that are outside that box, either they'll come to you or they won't. But don't waste your time being something that you're not. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope I made you go aha, or oh, I knew that already, Sean, you dumbass, you're wasting my time. But I really hope that this was a worthwhile. And I want you guys to reach out to me. I'm putting my information in the chat, and although I'm sure Natalie will also give it to everybody that wants it, but please keep in touch with me. I want to help. I want to give back. I want to continue to do what I can to support you guys. And I'm not going anywhere.